Alhamdulillah, thumma alhamdulillah. Nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa natubu ilayh. Wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fahuwa al-muhtadi wa man yudlil falan tajida lahu waliyan murshida. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu. Wa ashhadu anna sayyidina wa habibana wa maulana Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Amma ba'd, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. All praise is due to Allah, and after that all praise is due to Allah. We thank Him, we seek help from Him, we ask guidance in Him, and we seek forgiveness in Him from our own evils and from our own bad deeds. Anyone who has been guided by Allah, they are indeed guided. And anyone who has been misguided by Allah, you will never find a guardian to guide them. I bear witness. I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except for Allah, the only one without partner. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a servant and his messenger. To proceed forward. You know, I had a very tough time deciding this week what I would talk about. One choice that I had was to speak about the last 10 nights of the month of Ramadan and Laylatul Qadr, the night of power, and all of those things. But I decided, actually last night, that I was going to change my topic to something else. And the reason why, because I'm sure a lot of you already either know about the last 10 nights of Ramadan and Laylatul Qadr. You've been hearing the talks at the masajid talking about these things. So I thought, why, do something more than that regarding the same subject. So I thought I would switch it, but I just wanted to say one thing that I had a kind of a realization of. There's a flyer going around, and it talks about the deeds that you can do in the month of Ramadan, and especially in the last 10 nights. And if you catch Laylatul Qadr and you're making dua, that this flyer says, then it's as if you had made dua for 1,000 months, 82 years. And if you make dhikr as if you did it for 1,000 months, and if you're making salat as if you did it for 1,000 months, and those type of things. And the one thing that I actually thought about when I saw the flyer was, it's actually, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more generous than that. He's more generous than the 83 years and 1,000 months. And the reason why is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran when He's describing Laylatul Qadr, He says, Laylatul Qadr khayru min alfi shahr. It says it's better than 1,000 months. It's not 1,000 months. It's better. It's an open-ended invitation. Meaning it's an open-ended formula. Meaning He can give you, 93, 103, 1,003, whatever He wants to do. The minimum that He's going to give you, because it says in the Quran, is better than. The minimum is going to be 1,000 months or 82 years. So, alhamdulillah, when I thought of that, I thought to myself, mashallah, I don't know, it just made me think about Laylatul Qadr in a completely different light, so I thought I'd share that with you. But like I said, this is not the topic of my khutbah today. If you were reading one juz per day in the month of Ramadan, you probably came across a surah last night, and it was talking about fatherhood. And I'm not going to tell you what that surah is, because if you don't know, then I'll leave you guessing until later on in this khutbah. And if you do know, because you were reading from the book of Allah, alhamdulillah, you know exactly which surah that I'm talking about. And if you, so this is about fatherhood. This is what I wanted to talk about today. So over the past few months, you probably have noticed, as I've talked multiple times, I've given a khutbah on International Women's Day. I've given one on Mother's Day. And both times I touched upon the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when Abu Hurairah reports that there was a man who came to the Prophet ﷺ and he asked him, he said, who is most deserving of my good company? And the Prophet ﷺ responded and he said, your mother. And the man said, who next? And he said, your mother. And he said, who next? And he said, your mother. And then finally the man said, who next? And he said, your father. Right? And so that was the hadith of the Prophet, and I've mentioned this over and over again. And you might be asking to yourself, well, wait a minute, when is this hadith, when is Monim going to talk about fatherhood? Because there is a mention of it in here. So when is he going to do that? Alhamdulillah, now is the time that I'm going to do that. So I want to focus on this one hadith that I just mentioned, But rather than speaking about the motherhood, which I actually spoke about a few times, what I want to focus on is the idea of fatherhood. What does that mean in Islam, and how do we carry it out from there? As I was doing my research, limited as I was doing my research, I'm not a scholar, I tried to look up as many hadith as I could regarding fathers in Islam. And and like I said, I don't have the exhaustive knowledge or books and libraries and so things, but whatever I could find, and whatever Sheikh Google told me, it wasn't very, very much. Very little is actually about fatherhood in Islam. So where you do find something about your parents, it's either on the mother, right? The paradise is beneath the feet of the mother. And who should I respect most? The mother, the father. It either talks about those things, or it talks about both. Be kind to your parents, be generous to your parents in plural. But it doesn't specifically talk about the father specifically. And I thought about this thing, and I was like, why is it that the Prophet ﷺ in hadith doesn't really speak about fatherhood and those type of things? My conclusion, right, my humble opinion, my conclusion was that during the time, imagine yourself during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and for a lot of people, it could be times that we're living in right now as well, but definitely in the subsequent generations after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, a father already had a high status in society. He already had that high status. So there was no reason for the Prophet ﷺ to mention it. The father was already given that honor. And how do we know this? Because the lineage comes from the father. How do we know this? Because the children are called Banu Fulan or Binti Fulan. Right? The son of so-and-so, the father, or the daughter of so-and-so's father. So that type of respect is there. The father was the one who would be going out there, and he would be earning a living. He would be one fighting in jihad. He would be doing all of these things. The honor was already given to the father. However, if you look at it from the mother's perspective, from a child's perspective, they're basically, during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they're seeing their mothers being inherited from father to son. They're seeing their mothers lose all of their property. They're seeing their mothers become the baseless within society. And so why did the Prophet ﷺ focus on the mother part of it? Because it was the mother that was the baseless person in society. It wasn't the father. The father was already somebody that was honored. So that was my kind of a small little conclusion that was there. So if you ever ask yourself, why is there not very many hadith about fatherhood in Islam, maybe this would be a potential answer for you. Now, why am I talking about fatherhood? Because this Sunday is Father's Day. And if you didn't know that, now you do. And if your kids don't know that, tell them. That today, this Sunday, is Father's Day. And I began to think about what it means to be a father. What does it mean? What lessons can we learn? How can we take from the Quran? What can we take from the Quran when it talks about fatherhood? And I wanted to remind myself of what Islam teaches. From the Quran specifically, we have two examples that I want to share with you today about the relationship between a father and their children. Number one, a father's role is to give good counsel and advice to their children. Give good counsel and advice. Now we have the story of Luqman. And if you're waiting for me to tell you which surah it was referring to Surah Luqman, which is in the 21st juz of the Quran. Now in the story of Surah Luqman, there's a conversation, or there's actually a monologue. The father, Luqman, is advising his son and counseling him in what he needs to learn, what are the important things in life. And the way he addresses them is very, very important. Because he addresses his son with a term of endearment. Ya bunayya. Right? He could have said, like we normally do, hey. He could have said, by his first name. He could have said anything that he wanted to. Right? In the Arabic, they say himar. He could have said that, hey, donkey, come over here, let me tell you something. I mean, he could have done anything because that's how we sometimes treat our children. But he didn't. He said, Ya bunayya, oh my dear, my beloved. It's a term of endearment, my beloved son. And he did this out of love and not out of anger, which is important to be able to do this. Do this or don't do this, or do this or don't do this. That's not what Luqman is how he's teaching his son. Rather, he wants the best for his son. And we all want the best for the son, but he gives them the advice in a way that his son, he's confident that the son will take it, which is the best of ways. And so the first advice that he gives is show gratitude towards Allah. He says it says in the Quran, when Luqman said to his son while he was instructing him, "Oh my son, ya bunayya, do not associate, la tushrik billah, do not associate anything with Allah. Indeed, association with Him is the greatest of injustice." Right? The first thing out of anybody's mouth to the son should always be the most important thing you can think about, teaching yourself, kids, not about anything else, even before salah, even before anything will be, do not associate partners with Allah, because that is the gravest of sins. And you don't want yourself to end up in heaven while your son ends up, or your children end up in the fire, because you forgot to teach them about what is important in life. So that was the first one. Show gratitude towards Allah. Do not associate any partners with Him. Number two, he tells them, now that you are not associating, you have to know that Allah is aware of everything. Allah is aware of everything. Oh my son, ya bunayya. Indeed, if wrong should be the weight of a mustard seed, and should be within a rock, or anywhere in the heavens or the earth, Allah will bring it forth. Indeed, Allah is subtle and acquainted. Right? So that was the second thing that he told them, was that Allah, not only is there's no associated partners with Him, but He knows everything you're going to do. Another way to say, watch out. Make sure you know exactly what you're doing, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. And then he tells, now he gets into the third one, which is what we generally tend to focus on: establishing prayer, enjoining justice, and being patient. So that was number 3 on the advice. Oh my son, establish prayer. Enjoin what is right, forbid what is wrong, and be patient over whatever befalls you. Whatever befalls you, be patient. Indeed, all that is, it is of the matters requiring determination. Everything that you have, it requires determination from you. This is the third piece of advice that Luqman gave. And then the fourth one, do not be prideful. Right? Because now that you confidently believe that there's no associating with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know that He's aware of everything, you're establishing your prayers, you're enjoining good, you're forbidding evil, you're patient. What is the next thing that you're probably going to get inside of you? It's called arrogance, kibr. And so the next advice that Luqman gives to his son is, don't have any kibr, any arrogance within you. Don't be prideful. Instead, he tells them, and do not turn your cheek in contempt towards the people, and do not walk through the earth exultantly. Indeed, Allah does not like everyone self-deluded and boastful. Right? So this is now, be humble, is what Luqman is telling his son. After you begin to do your good deeds, and shaitan's going to come to you and tell you, mashallah, you're doing such a good job. You should be proud of yourself, and you're better than everybody else. This is when you know that you should be watching out for that which is called arrogance or pride. And then finally, after you've calmed yourself down and you think of yourself as a normal person, Luqman tells his son, be moderate in pace and lower your voice. Right? Luqman tells his son, and be moderate in your pace and lower your voice. Indeed, the most disagreeable of sounds is the voice or the braying of a donkey. That's literally what it says in the Quran. Right? A braying of a donkey. So this is what Luqman is telling his son. Now, I say this with all sincerity when I say this, is that many times we are not very patient when it comes to teaching our children. In fact, we're the opposite. We're either yelling at them, reprimanding them, and even if we want to give them a piece of advice, it's as if we're talking down to them. And I'll be honest with you, as I mentioned, we do this condescendingly, but Luqman is doing it in the opposite way. He's actually giving his son advice as if to raise him up, not to put him down. And this is the type of thing that we want to be able to do ourselves. And I'm just as guilty of this as anybody over here. In fact, probably my son, who's sitting in the audience today, probably can vouch for this. I probably need this advice more than anybody else does as well. So number 2, that was the first one. The second dialogue that happens is the dialogue between Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam. And we all know the story because we repeat it usually at the time of Eid al-Adha, or the time of Eid al-Sacrifice. this idea of seeking dialogue. Ibrahim a.s. knows what he needs to do. He's already had a dream, and he's had it multiple times, right? And we know that the dreams of the prophets are not like dreams of ours. That they actually are something, they're instructions from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do something. And so he knows exactly what he has to do. But imagine walking up to what we would probably do in this day and age. Imagine walking up to your son without even telling him anything, grabbing him by the hand, and moving him over to the altar so that you can kill him. Right? I mean, that's not what Ibrahim a.s. This is a lesson for us. That he actually has a consultation with his son, and he says, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when he reached, this is Ismail, when he reached with him the age of exertion, that means he was old enough to be able to work. And he said, which is Ibrahim said to his son, again, Ya bunayya, O my beloved son, indeed I have seen in a dream that I must sacrifice you. Right? Now think about this for a second. He didn't have to tell him what was happening. He could have just done it like we normally do. But he didn't. He said, you know what? I had a dream, Ismail, my dear son. I had a dream, and I was sacrificing you. So see, what do you think? What do you think about this dream? Now, this is a different dynamic, right? You tell your son now, you had a dream about sacrificing, he's going to run out the door and call the cops. But that's not what we're talking about here, because remember, Ismail is also a prophet. And so a prophet is speaking to a prophet, and both of them know that if a dream comes, and is coming consistently, that it is going to be something that is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is a different dialogue. And so the father, Ibrahim tells the son, what do you think about this? And so now Ismail, knowing that he's a prophet, us knowing there's a prophet, he responds back and he says, Ya abati, oh my dear father, do as you are commanded. You have to do what you have to do. You will find me, if Allah wills, of those that are patient and steadfast in whatever you do. So Ibrahim a.s. he turns and to his son, and he asks for advice. And again, like in the story of Luqman, Ibrahim is turning to his son in a way of affection, in a way of loving him and asking him for what do you think he should do. Ya bunayya, and then Ismail responds back, Ya abati. Those are both, my dear father, my dear son, those type of things. And one has to wonder, what would have happened if Ismail, would have not have answered the way that he did? That he wouldn't, he basically would have run away from what his father was telling him. But now this is the relationship between a father and a son. A father should know how to advise his son. That means that Ibrahim a.s. knew that Ismail wouldn't run away when he told him about the dream. And he knew exactly what his response would be, and that's why he's asking him for his opinion. And that's why we have to have that same type of relationship with our children. That we know what they're going to do, we know what the answer is going to be to the questions we're going to ask them, because we have such an intimate relationship with our children that's there. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make me of those that is like that with my children. I'm not there yet. I mean, this is advice just for me as well. But it depends upon how we raise our children. How we raise them will be a direct result of how when we talk to them, what kind of response we're going to get back. Right? Imagine for yourself, if your father was somebody that was very strict with you and you feared him, how would you respond if he said, you know what, I had a dream, I'm going to kill you? But if he was somebody that you respected and you knew he was a religious person, he was somebody that would never do anything to harm you, then if he would have said that, you would have had a completely different idea of exactly how you would respond to your father. Right? So Ibrahim was assured in this dialogue that he had raised him in the proper way. This is something that he was thinking for himself by asking for his son's opinion. Ismail knew that his father loved him and would not do anything ever to harm him in any way. And sometimes we should be asking advice from our children. We should be asking advice from our children, not always giving the ones that are giving the advice, but to make them feel important, and at the same time to find out if we have given them good instructions, because in the answers that they give, we will realize how we were able to raise our children. How we were able to raise our children. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who are able to raise our children in the examples that are mentioned in the Quran, in the examples of our Nabi and our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله ولكم واستغفر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Now again, I just want to be very, very clear that in this khutbah that I'm giving today, it's actually a reminder for myself and not an instruction upon you, because I have just as equally as much to improve my relationship with my children as maybe you do as well. And so the relationship is something that has to start at a very, very early age. At a very early age. And in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he said, he mentioned that there was 7 years when the child, for the first 7 years, you nurture them. Right? And in the next 7 years, you teach them. And then in the final 7 years, now they're going on 21, in the final 7 years, you're befriending them. Nurture, teach, and then befriend. And if you think about this hadith from a perspective of a father, right? If you look at the first 7 years of nurture, that's usually the mother's job. Let's be honest with each other. No matter how much we want to do it, try to do it, whatever we can, as soon as we look at the diaper, we want to run away. As soon as we want, as soon as we want to be able to make any food, it burns. So the nurture part of it, probably for the most of us, it's not for us, it's for the mothers. The second part of it, which is the teaching, is a joint responsibility. It's something that the mother has to do and the father has to do as well. They might do it in different ways, but it is a joint responsibility that happens. But the last 7 years, which is the idea of befriending, now the son is 15 till he's 21 years of age. Most likely, this idea of befriending is going to happen with the father rather than the mother. Now, it's not always the case. As I mentioned, some fathers can actually even nurture their children from the first 7 years. And in the same way, some mothers can do that in the last 7 years as well. But in most cases, the befriending and the advice and the friendship has to happen with the father, especially with the son. Because that's the age when the son is trying to be older than he is, and he's going to look to people that are older for advice, and who better to turn to than his friend, aka also known as his father. So this last aspect is something that we have to be able to do. And so the last thing that I wanted to mention in regards to raising of our children is that we need to learn to love them and show them affection. Now again, in our societies, this is very, very uncommon, and I realize that, but it is something we need to change. We need to be able to change, because that love and that affection is something we always and constantly need to be able to show our children. Whether it be in words, in deeds, in whatever it is, we constantly need to be able to do that. Because unfortunately the opposite tends to happen, is that we think that we have to have respect, or our children have to have respect for us, and a lot of times that respect, we try to do it through fear. Right? And sometimes it's so ingrained on us, in our culture, in our societies, that even when the mother wants to punish the child, she says, wait for your father to come home. So that the father becomes only the parent of reprimand, and the mother becomes the person that the child goes to every time they want to get away with something. Right? But at the same time, the father also needs to be able to show that love and that affection, and it's very, very important to be able to build up children that are emotionally confident, that are emotionally stable, and to be able to pass down to their generations as well. Abu Huraira relates in a hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was playing with Hassan ibn Ali, and he kissed him. And one of the people that was there, his name was Al-Aqra ibn Habis al-Tamimi, was sitting with the Prophet ﷺ, and he turned to the messenger and he said, you know, I have 10 children and I haven't ever kissed one of them. Now he's telling the Prophet this as a boastful thing. He's looking at the Prophet ﷺ kissing his grandson, and he's saying, that he's thinking to himself, that this is the tone that he's using. He's saying, oh, that's an act of mercy. That's not for us. I have 10 children and I've never kissed any of them before. And look at the response of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, Wayhaka. This is like a woe to you in a very bad way. What he says, whoever does not show mercy will not be shown mercy. Whoever doesn't show mercy, you're not going to be shown mercy by, obviously, he's talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, our responsibility is not only to never kiss our children. That's what the Prophet ﷺ said. We have to show mercy and love and affection to our children so that the Creator of the heavens and the earth can show love and affection and mercy towards us on the Day of Judgment. And then also, this being said, I wanted to leave this khutbah by kind of turning the tables on this. I've talked about the relationship of the father and the responsibility we have as fathers to our children, right? But many of us here also have fathers ourselves, whether they be alive or have passed on. And so I can't leave this khutbah without mentioning just a little bit about our relationship with our fathers. And especially during these last 10 nights of the month of Ramadan, whatever we do, as I mentioned earlier, whatever we do to be able to make dua for our fathers, for our mothers, for anybody, right? There's always an angel sitting there and they will say, and for you as well, and for you as well, and for you as well. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran that we shouldn't even respond back to our parents, even with a, not even as simple as that. Whatever they ask us to do, we're supposed to be able to do that. There's a story of an old man, and he's sitting in the courtyard with his older son. Now his son is his own. This is a much older man. He's sitting in there with his son, and suddenly there's a crow who flies and he sits on a branch of a tree. And the father turns to his son after a little while. The crow is sitting there, and he says, "Oh son, what's that?" And the son says, "Oh dad, that's a crow." That says, "Okay." A little while passes, and the son turns to him and says, the father turns to the son and says, "Son, what is that sitting on that tree?" And now the son is getting a little bit irritated. He says, "Dad, it's a crow." And so a little more time passes by, and the father, he turns to the son and says, "Son, what is that sitting on the tree?" And now you can see the frustration building up in the son. And the son says, "Dad, I just told you, it's a crow, Dad." And the son says, "Okay." Right? And a little while more passes by, and the father, again, old man, turns to his son and says, "Son, what is that sitting on that tree?" And the son looks at him and says, "Dad, I told you this like so many times. It's the same crow that's been sitting on that tree. Oh, it hasn't moved, and nothing else has happened." And the father says, "Okay." He goes back, he gets up and he walks back into the house, and he brings back with him a diary. And he gives it to his son, and he says, "Turn, son, to the page in the diary when you were about very, very young." And so he turns over to the page in the diary, and the son reads out loud to the father exactly what it says. And he says, "Today my little son was sitting with me in the courtyard. And when a crow came and sat on the branch, my son asked me 25 times what it was sitting there on that branch. And 25 times I responded that it was a crow, and I did not get irritated any time that 25 times was asked. I never got irritated one time. I rather felt affection for my innocent child." And so the father, when the son was reading this, the father turned to his son, and the father explained to him the difference between a father's love and a son's love, or a father's attitude and a son's attitude. He said, "While you were a little child and you asked me this question 25 times, I felt no irritation in replying to the question that you asked me over and over and over again." And we do this. We're sitting in the car and our son asks us something, or children ask us something. "Hey Dad, what's this?" And you answer it, and then a little bit later, "Hey Dad, what's this?" And he asks it again, and you answer it again, and then later on says, "And what's this?" Or you get this question, "But why? But why? But why?" And there's no answer to it, and you get frustrated and frustrated and frustrated. Right? But the father is telling you, no, when a father does it to the son, there's no frustration, it's affection. But then in old age, when the father does it to the son is very quick-tempered and very, very easy for him to be able to be impatient and not be there for the question 25 times versus 5 times. Think about that when we're dealing with our own parents, right? When we might get irritated with them, how many times did they get irritated with us? But they blew it off because of their affection towards us, and they never said anything. They never even showed us that there was any irritation in the voice that they were speaking to us with. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Noble Quran, He says, and your Lord has commanded you that you shall not serve any but Him. Meaning, do not worship anything but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in the next words, He says, and goodness to your parents, if either or both of them reach old age with you, say not to them so much as a word of uff, or nor chide them, and speak to them with generous words, and make yourself submissively gentle to them, and with compassion say, رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. O my Lord, have compassion on them, or have mercy on them, as they brought me up when I was little. As they had mercy on me when I was little, have mercy on them now that they are in their old age. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who listen and obey.